There is a feeling many people live with quietly, a feeling that life should be clearer than it is, that direction should already have emerged, that something essential is missing even though nothing obvious is broken. This feeling is often described as being lost, as if the path itself has disappeared. Yet in most cases, that interpretation is inaccurate. What feels like being lost is very often something else entirely. It is distraction. Not confusion, not lack of intelligence, not lack of motivation, but a constant fragmentation of attention that prevents clarity from settling long enough to be felt. Being lost suggests the absence of direction. Distraction suggests something far more subtle, that direction exists, but your attention rarely stays in one place long enough to recognize it. Modern life is built around movement, stimulation, information, and reaction. Thoughts are interrupted before they finish forming. Emotions are processed halfway before the next input arrives. The mind remains active, but rarely still. Over time, this creates a state where everything feels noisy and nothing feels meaningful, even though meaning itself has not disappeared. When attention is scattered for long periods, mental fatigue begins to masquerade as lack of purpose. You start believing that you don't know what you want, when in reality you no longer hear what you want. Values don't vanish. Instincts don't dissolve. They simply get buried under layers of constant input, comparison, urgency, and expectation. The mind becomes so occupied reacting to the outside world that it loses contact with its own internal signals. Distraction is particularly deceptive because it often looks productive. You stay busy. You consume information. You plan, optimize, reflect, and prepare endlessly. There is movement, but no direction. Activity becomes a substitute for intention. Thinking replaces choosing. You are not idle, yet nothing feels anchored. This is why so many people feel exhausted without feeling fulfilled. The energy is spent, but nothing meaningful is built. A distracted mind also becomes emotionally reactive. When the nervous system never settles, emotions rise faster and feel heavier than they need to. Small doubts grow into large uncertainties. Discomfort is interpreted as a sign that something is wrong, when it is often just a signal that perspective has been overloaded. Without stillness, every feeling feels urgent, and urgency clouds judgment. In this state, the mind keeps looking outward for answers. What should I do next? What is the right move? What are others doing with their lives? These questions create activity, but not clarity. They keep attention circulating externally, where it cannot stabilize. Clarity asks different questions, quieter ones, questions that do not demand immediate answers but require space to be heard. What feels consistent over time? What quietly returns even when distractions fade? What kind of effort feels honest rather than forced? Clarity does not arrive through accumulation. It arrives through subtraction. When noise is reduced, when inputs are limited, when attention is no longer constantly pulled in multiple directions, something settles. Direction doesn't appear dramatically. It reveals itself gradually, through patterns that were always present but previously drowned out. Distraction also fuels comparison in subtle ways. Constant exposure to other people's progress, opinions, and lifestyles causes you to evaluate your own life from the outside instead of living it from the inside. Your path begins to feel inadequate not because it lacks value, but because it is constantly measured against borrowed standards. Direction fragments as you keep adjusting it to match what you observe elsewhere. Over time, this creates the illusion of being lost, even though what is actually happening is repeated abandonment of your own signals. Noise also protects you from responsibility. As long as attention is scattered, decisions can be delayed. Commitment can remain abstract. Difficult choices can be postponed indefinitely. Distraction becomes a form of emotional shelter. It keeps clarity at a distance. But clarity delayed too long turns into stagnation. Safety without direction slowly becomes confinement. Direction itself is quiet. It does not compete for attention. It does not shout. It shows up as repetition rather than excitement, as a steady pull rather than a dramatic urge. It appears in the things that continue to matter even when novelty fades, in the discomforts that point somewhere meaningful, in the interests that return when stimulation is removed. To notice these signals, stillness is required. Stillness is not passivity. It is discipline. The discipline to stop filling every moment. The discipline to let boredom surface without escaping it. The discipline to sit with unanswered questions without immediately seeking relief. When this space is created, patterns begin to reveal themselves naturally. You notice what consistently energizes you and what consistently drains you. You notice where effort feels aligned and where it feels performative. These realizations are not new. They are recognitions of what was always there beneath the noise. This is why moments of clarity so often arrive during quiet walks, early mornings, long showers, or time away from screens. Not because answers are magically produced in these moments, but because interference is removed. When the mind is no longer being pulled outward, it reorganizes itself naturally. Distraction also fragments identity. When too many perspectives are absorbed without integration, your own voice becomes harder to recognize. You begin to repeat ideas without fully inhabiting any of them. This creates an inner tension that feels confusing but has a simple cause. Attention has been divided too long to form coherence. Reclaiming direction does not require radical change or dramatic reinvention. It requires simplification. Fewer inputs. Fewer opinions. Less urgency. Depth begins to replace breadth. One idea explored fully becomes more valuable than dozens skimmed. One habit practiced consistently becomes more powerful than constant reinvention. Focus is not intensity. It is loyalty. Loyalty to what matters. Loyalty to what you choose to build. Distraction also creates a false sense of urgency. Everything feels immediate. Every opportunity feels critical. But what truly matters usually unfolds slowly. Growth compounds quietly. Direction forms through rhythm and consistency, not pressure. As distraction fades, urgency fades with it. Anxiety softens. Decisions feel lighter. You begin distinguishing between what is loud and what is meaningful. Feeling lost is not a failure of intelligence or motivation. It is often the natural result of living in an environment that constantly pulls attention outward. The nervous system adapts to stimulation, not reflection. The solution, then, is not more thinking, more planning, or more consumption. It is less. Direction does not come from scrolling. Clarity does not come from comparison. Purpose does not come from constant activity. It comes from protecting your attention. As distraction recedes, responsibility returns. And responsibility can feel heavy at first, because clarity removes excuses. Seeing clearly also means seeing where action has been avoided. That moment can feel uncomfortable, but it is also deeply empowering, because clarity does not ask you to do everything. It asks you to do one thing consistently. Direction does not require certainty. It requires commitment. Commitment to values. Commitment to rhythm. Commitment to showing up even when emotion fluctuates. You are not lost. You are overstimulated. You are distracted. And distraction is reversible. When attention is reclaimed, direction returns gradually and quietly, not through dramatic shifts, but through daily alignment between what matters and where focus is placed. If this reflection resonates with you, this channel explores mindset, discipline, emotional clarity, and long-term thinking in calm, grounded ways, without pressure or noise. If you're ready to replace stimulation with clarity and movement with meaning, consider subscribing to Motify Me now. Not to search for yourself, but to stop losing yourself in distraction.